Hello, for my final PechaKucha, I'm going to be focusing on the story and the relationship between Gypsy Rose and her mother, Dee Blanchard. My main artifact is an interview Dr. Phil had with Gypsy Rose that further explains her childhood and her story. Now, for my artifact, the concepts I will be applying will be identity, forensic discourse, power within the rhetorical resources and constraints chapter, and then lastly, symbolic action, but more specifically constructing social reality and rhetorical agency. The first concept from chapter 1, symbolic action, is going to be the construction of social reality. So this is how things come to mean created by symbolic action, and this occurs through naming objects, actions, concepts, and people. Moving forward to the next concept, this is also from chapter 1, symbolic action, which is going to be rhetorical agency. This is the capacity to act, defined by Campbell. It is one's own ability to choose to act on something or someone. The term power is defined by the ability to get things done. This is mentioned in chapter 2, rhetorical resources and constraints, which is about who has it and who does not. This relates to the constraints that power brings to rhetorical situations. Chapter 7, rhetorics, includes the term identity. This is defined by the physical and or behavioral attributes that make a person recognizable as member of a group. Some features that have social significance for group identification include social categories like race, class, ability, or disability. Lastly, in chapter 9, rhetorical situations, out of the 3 discourses that are discussed throughout the chapter, we're going to be focusing on forensic discourse. This specific discourse addresses a designated audience, like a jury or a judge, about past events. Mother Knows Best, a story of Munchausen by proxy and murder, which is the interview title that Gypsy Rose Blanchard had with Dr. Phil. Within this interview, Gypsy Rose talks about her childhood life with her mom, the leading up to the anger she built towards her, and the reasonings behind her wanting to kill her mother. Gypsy Rose is the writer who this artifact is based around. She is a 32-year-old woman who was imprisoned due to a second-degree murder towards her mother, Dee Blanchard, for posing a fake life for Gypsy Rose. Although she was involved and plotted on the killing, her boyfriend Nicholas was the primary murderer who actually committed the act on June 9, 2015. In the interview, Gypsy is reflecting on her childhood and the type of trauma her mother had made her go through. She also acknowledges the gravity of being involved with the killing of her own mother, but later explains where her mind was at when it occurred, and why she felt the need to go through with the killing itself. That make us understand the severity of the crime is that her mother made Gypsy believe she had multiple health issues such as cancer, epilepsy, an unspecified chromosomal disorder, and muscular dystrophy, to name a few. Dee made her consume various unnecessary medications that altered Gypsy to believe she was actually a sick child. We can analyze the case between her murder as a forensic discourse because of the utterance that was used to determine who killed Dee. The ongoing text message between Nicholas, Gypsy's boyfriend, and herself prior to Dee's death was about anticipating Gypsy's freedom and the materials that they needed to kill Dee. In order to sentence Nicholas and Gypsy, the jury was explained the discourse between the messages, the possible reasoning behind Gypsy's intention, and the physical evidence on the crime scene. This forensic discourse allows us to understand the set punishments for Gypsy, which was a plea deal, and for Nicholas, a life sentence. Gypsy was taught about her inability to speak or walk since the early ages of 8. The construction of her social reality was made by her mother, which was all she knew was living indoors and in hospitals. She never thought anything of it as a child because that's what she thought was normal. Gypsy did not even question the reality outside of her situation because she had not figured out that she was lied to. As she grew up, that social reality her mother created was falling apart as she made friends with those she could in her neighborhood. She specifically made friends with a girl named Aaliyah. With the friendship she had with her, Gypsy started to question and compare Aaliyah's reality with hers. This is when Gypsy began to challenge her mother's ideas of her various illnesses. This leads us to identity, where the lifestyle of Gypsy's friends around her made her think about her identity and her own capabilities with the act of walking and speaking, for example. To Gypsy, she identified herself as a girl who was born mentally and physically sick and was unable to do many things. Some contributing factors that made her highly question her identity as well was the public popularity her and her mother gained because of her own illnesses. She had celebrities, charities, and other people financially contributing to her life to keep giving her a stable life despite her conditions, but this only intensified the image she had of herself. Late years down the line, Gypsy was later able to discover that she could walk without her wheelchair and eat normal foods without medication without it harming her. This made her realize that her mom was making Gypsy a fake persona to the public, which made her question her own mother and her intentions. Gypsy used agency to try and escape her situation by leaving home. Her mother ended up finding her and punished her with threats. This made her want to leave even more to reach her freedom. This led to her reaching out to her online boyfriend about possibly doing something worse to her mother in order for her to be able to leave. Because of this artifact, we're able to determine the impact of power and how it affects those who don't have control over it. In this case, we can identify this dynamic between Dee Dee and Gypsy as her mother uses the control she has to make those around her life believe Gypsy's life was declining in order to receive those benefits that came with having a sick daughter.